Hi, friends, and welcome to Season 3 of the School Librarian Learning Network podcast. I'm Steve Tatro, often known as Dr. T Loves Books, and I love talking about all things related to school libraries. I'm an old dog who's always trying to learn new tricks. That's why at each episode of the SLLN podcast, I'll chat with a school librarian about a lesson, program, or activity they love. Hopefully, this can be a place for school librarians to get ideas and find new ways to engage with their students and staff. Speaking of which, I'd love to hear about what you and your friends are doing in your school library. Email me at drtlovesbooks@gmail.com. That's drtlovesbooks@gmail.com to tell me about what you're doing, offer feedback about the SLLN podcast, or to request a podcast sticker. As Amy Herman likes to say, being a guest on a podcast is a great way to show your admins you are engaged in meaningful professional development and leadership in the profession. So drop me a line and let's chat. That being said, the opinions and ideas shared in this podcast by myself and my guests are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. I just like to geek out about school libraries. So without further ado, let's get to this week's episode. Hey everybody, we're back, and I say we're back because I've got a returning guest and I'm super excited. So before I even get too far ahead, let me say welcome, Kannan. I'm so glad you can be here again. Why don't you take a second, tell folks who you are, where you're at, and what you do.
Sure. My name is Kannan Cangro. I am an elementary librarian, kindergarten through 6th grade in Northern Virginia. We are outside Washington, D.C. My school is about 560 students.
Okay.
I've had a journey through librarianship. I think if you go listen to the other podcasts, you'll know that previously I was an elementary art teacher.
Yeah,
So
which I love. That
Thanks.
If you haven't listened, by the way, go back, listen to episode 65 where Kannan's talking to us about her True Book Fair, how she implemented True Book Fair in her school, and her fascinating backstory of going from art to the library, which is great. So that's out there. Go check it out. But we're here today to go in a different direction because you reached out with this awesome thing that you're doing, and I'm so glad that you did. And I'm actually going to play a little bit of inside pool here with folks because we were talking, Kannan and I were speaking before we got going on the recording, and she was saying how like she has these different things that she does, and she's not sure if any of them were any good for, sharing with others. And she had an intern this year. And I'm sorry I'm telling your story, but I love this story that your intern was like, oh my gosh, this thing you did is so awesome. You should absolutely share this. So I want to just remind everyone, you might think in your head, I don't know, maybe this isn't such a thing. It's a thing. It's absolutely a thing. You should absolutely come and share it. And I'm so glad that you are sharing this. So with that all said, let me circle back around and say, what is it that we're going to be doing here? We're talking pen pals, which is interesting. And where did that come from?
So I'm sure we're all experiencing this. My students, there was a point in the year where they clearly had screen fatigue. And a lot of the lessons I do, especially, so for our state of Virginia, 3rd grade is when they start standardized testing.
Okay.
But that is not the time where they first start testing. I mean, we are testing children in kindergarten with a screen. I mean, if it's an iPad or with our 1st graders, it's a laptop, whatever it is, whether it's iReady or Benchmark, whatever it is, they're constantly taking tests on screens.
Yeah.
And there came a point, and it's probably after 1st quarter, towards the end or the middle of 1st quarter, where I realized my kids have screen fatigue. I mean, they were just like, can you just read us a book? Can we just not do anything today? And to remind everyone, I have my students K through 4, at least so far. It can historically change. We never know how the schedule changes.
Right.
But historically, I have my kindergarten through 4th graders for 30 minutes a week to cover teacher planning time. So I see them every week. I have a captive audience where I teach them and they check out. And so we get to do a lot of cool stuff. And a lot of things I do with 3rd grade, because that's when they can really start delving into computer science and STEAM and robotics. Much of it requires a screen, and they did not want a screen. You could tell they didn't want a screen. And so I thought to myself in my head, what can I do outside of just reading a book and something I could cultivate all year long? And I thought back to my own experiences, and I remember in 5th grade, we had pen pals in Missouri. I can't tell you anything else. I know my class wrote a pen pal letter to another class in Missouri. They wrote back, and we wrote back a couple times. And I remember this being the most exciting thing ever. Now, me in 5th grade was the 80s, right? So I'm going to age myself here. But I thought to myself, why can't we bring this back?
Mm.
And then in the early 2000s, I was a zine-ster, if you are into zines. I used to do per-zines, which is a personal zine. And there was like a little network where we would all send each other pen pal letters and we would send each other zines. And I was like, wow, like I loved that. I loved a mail day.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bring that to my students. However, I know there's so many privacy policies with students and the district and things like that. So I thought, what is a way I can get them a pen pal that they're not going to meet? This was the thing. I didn't want them to meet them. I wanted them to, it's like an anonymous sort of stranger interaction.
Okay.
In a very safe way. With people who can write back very well, because my students are still learning to write, right? They're third graders. So I reached out to so luckily I work in a very large district. So I work in, like I said, outside Washington, D.C. Our district is like, I think the 9th largest district in the country.
Amazing.
So we have almost 250 librarians, school librarians in our district, which is quite a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's quite a lot. So I know a lot of librarians. I know a lot of secondary librarians. I know elementary librarians. So I reached out to a high school librarian friend and I said, hey, do you have access to a group of students regularly who would want to exchange pen pal letters? She's like, yeah, we can do that. Let me talk. I have an advisory. Let me talk to the teacher. And she came back. She's like, I have 15 students. Now I want to do this with third grade. So I have like 75 students. So I was like, okay, well, let me reach out to other secondary librarians that I know and I knew well. And when do I get to collaborate with these people? I really don't. And I love them, right? Like these are all people I either went to library school with or I've interacted with at meetings, or you just don't get to work with people outside your building that often. So I reached out to maybe 6 or 7 librarians and 5 came back to me.
Okay.
And I went to all of them and I was like, what's your numbers? Like, what kind of numbers do you have? And what was super interesting, Steve, is one, they were very like, yeah, I'm into it. And second, how they got the students, which for me, I was like, well, I have a captive audience. They just show up, right? But for high school, one librarian, she reached out to the journalism teacher, the journalism and creative writing teacher at her school. So those students were students who love to write. So those students would write to my students. 2 of the high schools were National Honor Society sponsors.
Okay.
So this was a way for them to get service learning hours for their students. So that was another way. Another librarian had another advisory. So she came back to me. Now I would say then my friend Maura, which you may have heard of Maura Madigan, Maura's like, hey, I have like 75 kids who are interested. Do you have more students? Do not recommend saying yes if you ever do this. But I was like, all right, you know what? I'll do this with second grade too. Maybe it wasn't the best decision at the time, but I did it. So my second and third graders did this.
Nice.
So we kind of started that in not the fall. It was kind of like before winter break. So yeah, we kind of started before winter break and that's how the whole thing cultivated. Because it's in my district, there's a lot of things I can kind of bypass, right? So I don't really need parent permission because we're all following the rules of the district. However, I did send like a communication to parents and I didn't give too many details because there would be a lot of questions if you just like send out this general, we're doing pen pals. And they're like, what? So I kind of said we were doing a collaboration with high school students to practice our writing. Okay. If you had questions, please email me. Nobody emailed me. But that was kind of just a way to kind of let them know, hey, this is happening. Yeah. And when my students go home and say, hey, I'm writing to a high schooler, right? The parents like, what? Yeah. Like, what do you mean you're writing to a high schooler?
Yeah, no, you absolutely want to cover that base.
Yeah. So I did send that communication to my parents. I also had no desire for these students to meet. I very much wanted to. So I didn't pick our feeder high school because these are kids who could be cousins or brothers or sisters or neighborhood friends. I did not pick those high schools. I picked secondary schools that don't feed into my school. Gotcha. And that would kind of keep just like that stranger element, right? Like this is just somebody you're never going to meet, faceless, just words on a page. And I actually think that was better. Although I did have a few high school teachers reach out at the end and go, hey, my kids really want to meet your kids. I don't know if that'll happen in the future. It's a scheduling logistical nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if that would happen, but I guess we could try in the future. But my kids were fine not meeting anybody. They were okay with that.
No, I think that's absolutely makes sense. And it's funny, not too long ago, I was talking to an English colleague and we were talking about AI and technology in the classroom and stuff. And she was like, I can't even imagine what the classroom's going to look like 5 years from now. And I said, it's going to look like it did 20 years ago because like you said, the screen fatigue, the just overwhelming tools that are taking away from the critical thinking process, like we need to move backwards in order for our students to intellectually move forwards. And so I love that you have sort of just dove headfirst into this idea of we're going back to something that I know was very important and formative in its way for me in my education. Let's bring that back and let's put it into a context that makes sense for my students.
I also think the art of correspondence has been lost.
Yes.
And this comes out when students write me an email. And usually they'll be like, hey, Miss Cangro, can I get this book? And I'm like, what is this email? Like literally, what is this email? And I thought, you know what? This is a way I can teach letter writing where they can have a connection. That was my thing too. I wanted it to be meaningful. Most of my students, the only time they've written a letter is like a thank you letter or a birthday card, kind of to like someone they knew. They've never written a letter to someone they don't know or anything like that. And let's be honest, emails aren't that different, right? Dear so-and-so,
they shouldn't be.
They shouldn't be, but they are, right? So I also thought that my students can learn to write an email without writing emails.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was another of my thought processes. So,
and there's also so many structures built into a letter when you're doing like an actual, I don't want to say formal, but when you're handwriting a letter, especially to somebody who doesn't know you, there are certain structures and patterns that you want to use to facilitate that communication. And those structures are going to carry over to just about any kind of writing you're going to do in the future. So I love that you're embedding it. And I'm assuming that they're handwriting their letters?
They are. It's all analog. Like I did not use, now I gave them digital like writing guides because my students cannot read my handwriting. They can't really. But so I gave them like things I typed out and I gave it to them. But yeah, they hand wrote.
Love it. Because we know that that's another element that when they're handwriting stuff, it sticks in the brain very differently than when you're doing stuff on a screen.
And
so
I had to like getting them to sit and write, like just write with a piece of paper and a pencil. They were like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, okay, so dear. So, I mean, I even broke down the letter, like, this is the greeting. This is the date. This is the body. This is, this is how we end it. We don't just start writing. This is what you do. Oh,
right.
Now I did not go into the whole like addressing an envelope thing because I sent our letters in the inter-school mail. In my district, it's called the Pony. I don't know why it's called the Pony. I'm going to find out historically why our inter-school mail is called the Pony. But I would just send it like in a big yellow envelope in the Pony. But yeah, so I think I would say to anyone who's thinking of trying this, like maybe pick one class, one teacher, or like 3, things like that. Luckily, I was confident enough in my skills where I was like, I could do this with 2 grade levels, 6 classes. Actually, was it more than 6 classes? No, it was 6. So it was 6 classes.
That's a lot.
Yes.
That's a lot.
And my second graders needed more structure. So they needed a lot more sentence starters. They needed a lot more modeling.
Sure.
And
I imagine too, like even with the handwriting, they probably haven't done a ton of handwriting. And so just the actual physical fatigue of the writing was probably a little bit of a thing.
One thing I mean, it's a positive, it's a negative. It's a positive and a negative. So the negative is I only really get 15 to 20 minutes of instructional time with them. So they're only really writing at a time for maybe 10 to 12 minutes. And then we have to finish it the next time because they're also checking out and I have to give them directions for the day.
Right.
So that's a perk. They're not writing for hours and hours. But when you're trying to do a lesson like this, or you're trying to do like a unit of lessons, only having 15 to 20 minutes of instructional time a week, you're like, okay, what am I going to accomplish this quarter? Quarter, right? So that's the positive and the negative. So I did in the beginning, I just did a postcard. So my students just filled out a postcard, and it was, I shared all these resources, Steve. So when you include the link, anyone who wants to do this, I have shared everything I have.
There's a whole folder, folks. Check it out.
Yeah.
It's great.
So we did a postcard, and one of my collaborators said, hey, let me improve on this postcard, because I sent her, I was like, I'm going to do this Canva template. She's like, actually, my students need a little more guidance. So I did this, and it was like, things I like are 1, 2, 3, 4, while mine was more blank. And I said, actually, I like yours better. I'm going to use yours. So
one of the
I
great
actually
things
ended
about
up
collaborating.
Yes. And how wonderful to do that. So it was kind of like my name, I'm in this grade, just first names. That's the other thing. It was first names. And if you had the same name as someone else, it would just be last initial. So it'd be like Steve T, right? So it wouldn't be two Steves. And so they would write, and things I like are. And that was a whole brainstorming activity with students. Like, what do you like that somebody else might want to know about? Like, you love pepperoni pizza, but how much are you going to correspond about pepperoni pizza, right? So, I mean, getting a third grader or a second grader to understand this, like we're talking about hobbies or books or things like that. And so first we just sent the postcard. I let the high school librarians make the matches, partly because I feel like older students can pick easier and they're not going to cry about not getting the match that they want. I hope. I don't teach high schoolers, but I mean, I feel like when they're older, they're just a little bit more flexible, and a little bit. Notice I said a little bit.
Yeah.
But my kids would cry. Like, I have students who would cry if they didn't get the right match. So it was much easier to let them make the match. And it was much easier to divvy my kids. Like, okay, you have 15 to this high school, 20 to this high school. And I had to kind of keep a meticulous list. So that's the other thing I would recommend, is having like a master list of your classes. So once you get those first postcards, you can just write in a name next to it.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah. And I think in retrospect, because I did it with so many students, I wish I had used like a different color stationery or a different sticker, depending on the school they were matched with. It didn't affect a lot of classes, but I had a few split classes where 2 sets went to 2 schools.
Gotcha.
And that was a little hard to organize at the end. But yeah, so that was how we started. So we started with the postcard.
Okay.
And then we got a postcard back. So with one school, we got every librarian is also different. I don't want to tell a librarian, hey, this is how we're doing it, because it's not that serious. So if they send back a letter, they send back a letter. They send back a postcard, they send back a postcard. The one thing was they sent back a postcard, so my students got to write. And in the first letter, I gave them options. Like, I totally gave them all different kinds of stationery. Like, hey, this one says date, greeting, body, so you know what to fill out. This one, for my second graders, I gave them a sentence structure. It said, dear so-and-so, this is what we're doing. Like, my favorite subject in school is blank, so they just had to fill it out.
Sure.
For my third graders, I gave them sentence starters. I gave more sentence starters to my English language learners, because some of them, they need more.
Sure.
Some,
well, and I love that you're differentiating too. Like, you're being aware that not all of our learners are going to be at necessarily the same place. And so how do we meet them where they are?
And they're available to everybody. Like, I literally just printed out a stack and was like, hey, take what you need. Here's the station. Take what you need. And some of them came back like, I think I need more. I'm like, go ahead, take it. I did have to meet with the special education teachers for some of my students with disabilities, because some of my students with disabilities, they either need devices to scribe, or they're just not very good at scribing. Or some of them have like, they can do verbal to auditory, but when it comes to verbal to writing, they have trouble.
Okay.
So for some of them, I had to make a plan, whether it was I scribe, whether it was I had a parent volunteer scribe for them. When I had an intern, she scribed for them. Sometimes if there was like an instructional assistant, I would have her scribe. We had some students who they couldn't do verbal to writing, but I could write down what they said and said, hey, copy this. Hey, copy this. And then it becomes authentic. It is what they said. I wrote it and they copied it. So that was another thing. And we always let the pen pal know, like, this was transcribed by Mrs. Cangro, librarian. So they know that this kid's not doing that. I also very much encourage them to write pictures, like draw pictures. Go ahead, like draw whatever you want.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the first exchange. And at first, like, they didn't seem that gung-ho. They were like, okay, we're doing this. But then the first like letters came. The first letters, and I hyped it up. I was like, it is mail call, right? Like, it's mail call. It's as they do in the military. It's mail call. And I would get the mail call and I would pass out the letters and you could hear a pin drop in the library. I mean, they were reading their letters. They had like other friends like, hey, my pen pal did this. And with some of the high schools, more than one student had more than one of my students. So like it would be one high schooler per 2 elementary kids because they can write better. Right?
Sure.
So, and that worked out fine. They'd be like, oh, you have the same pen pal as me? Or they would say, oh, my pen pal likes football. I don't really like football, but I'm going to say that you like football. I'm like, go ahead. One of the nicest things one of my high school librarian colleagues did for me, I had a student moving into the district mid-year.
Okay.
So she didn't have a pen pal. So I literally wrote a post-it and I said, hey, I filled out this for this new student coming. This is her name. This is all I know about her. If you could get anyone to write her a letter, so at the next mail call day, she gets a letter. That high school librarian must have picked like the nicest student. She wrote the sweetest letter, like, you're going to make friends. You must be so excited for a new school. It was the nicest, sweetest thing. And for a kid who just came in mid-unit, right? He's like, I don't have a pen pal. I'm like, actually, you do. Here you go. Here's your pen pal. They loved it. They absolutely loved it. The other thing for my students, I needed to model a lot. So I picked one of the high school librarian colleagues. I was like, hey, would you mind when you send a postcard from your students, you write me one? Like pretend that you and I are the pen pals.
Gotcha. So
she would write me a postcard and I would use that as the model. And then when she would write me a letter and I would use that as the model to reply. Because for my students, they need to see, how do I read this letter and respond with questions? Because they'll just answer the questions. Do you have any pets? I have one dog, period.
Right. Done.
I have 3 brothers. Done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, but you need to ask them, do you have any pets? Otherwise, what are they going to write back to you? And so that was like another challenge. I mean, that's almost a social emotional learning, right?
Yeah.
This
absolutely.
is how we interact with people.
Yeah. Very much.
Yeah. So that was another unexpected lesson that I was teaching these students is you need to ask them, like, what do you like? And I did have one student. There must have been one set of girls at a high school who loved to draw. We got some amazing sketches and drawings, but one student didn't get a sketch and he was not having it. So he had like a full on breakdown. I didn't get a picture. And so I wrote to the librarian. I was like, if there is any way that this student's pen pal match can give me some sort of drawing. I don't care if he traces it. Just something, please, stick figures. And he sent it. And my student was like, oh, okay. Seriously? And this is like the trials and tribulations of a librarian, right? So,
it's the littles, man.
They are temperamental.
Yeah.
But also they're so excited. And the other thing was I made sure I kept in constant communication with the librarians. So I said, hey, we're working on our letters. And they'd contact me too. Hey, what do you think your ETA is? Things like that. And a couple times librarians like, we should have started this sooner because they don't see their students as much as I do, right? If you have advisory, you're on an AB block, whatever weeks they may have this or that or whatever it is.
Sure.
So I think next year, and I will do this again next year, I'll do it with my 3rd graders who were my 2nd graders this year. Because they've had a pen pal, they have the experience. Yeah. But I would do it with my 3rd graders, and we've decided we'll start earlier.
I'm kind of curious on the timeline. Yeah. So as you're walking them through these different steps, this is probably taking more than one class to write a single letter back to the students.
The postcard took us about 2 sessions.
Okay.
The first letter took us about 3. Okay. About 3.
And you're seeing them once a week?
I see them once a week.
Okay. So now, like 2 sessions we're looking at 2 weeks to do.
Yeah, looking about like 40 minutes. And some of it is like they have to read the letter, right? Especially with the response. It's taking them 10 to 15 minutes to read a letter.
Sure.
And of course, like the high schoolers are probably reading it in 5 minutes because my students are only writing 5 to 6 sentences.
Right.
But they are writing back like very nice letters.
Are the high school students handwriting their letters?
They are handwriting them.
Okay. So there's another element to build in because like reading handwriting can be a struggle for some of our students.
And some of them writing cursive, and my students can't really read cursive, right? So there's that.
Okay.
Towards the end, I had a student who decided to decorate her letter. She was going to color the whole thing with a dark blue crayon. And I was like, okay, I can barely read this. So I ended up transcribing it and like stapling the transcription to the student. I'm like, sorry, she wanted to use dark blue. The other thing, Steve, is I had to read all the letters. I had to read my students' letters and I had to read the students' letters back. We have privacy guidelines. And that was the other thing was I felt I was able to embed that kind of digital security because, I mean, it's security in general, but digitally too. And remind my students, you have privacy rights, right? I only know about you, what you share with me, and what your parents choose to share with the school. And because you're under the age of 18, you don't have to share anything you don't want to share, or that's not okay with your family. So I tell them that, right? So I said, if you don't want to talk about your family structure, you don't have to. You don't want to talk about your pets, you don't have to. And a lot of the sentence starters I would give them would be about school. My favorite subject is, the thing I like to do at recess is. And some of them would branch off. I play Minecraft. Do you play Minecraft? You know, I like to watch this movie. Have you seen this movie, this TV show? Which is kind of nice, benign conversation to have. Or foods. They do like to talk about foods. I don't know what it is. My favorite food is, do you like, have you ever had Popeyes? Yes, buddy. They probably had Popeyes, but great. That's what you want to talk about. But yeah, I did have to read all the letters. And on one of the letters back, one of the high school students, and it was very small in a corner, had shared their social media identification. And I'm thinking it just kind of slipped through. So I just chopped it off. You know, it's fine. But yeah, I did make sure I read the letter. And part of that was because I wanted to always assure the families of my students that they did not reveal any information that would be considered private. They were always following our guidelines for student privacy.
Absolutely. Well, and even for the older students, like you said, sometimes they'll throw something in that they don't even think of as being private information necessarily, but you know, we've got to be cognizant of that as the ones who are, you know, in loco parentis. So yeah.
And some of my third grade girls are a little cheeky. You know, they're like, do you have a boyfriend? I'm like, why does that matter? Like, literally, why does that matter? And that was another conversation I had with students. They're like, well, I just want to know. And I said, okay. So say she writes back, she does. Then what? She's like, oh. I'm like, okay. What if she writes back, she doesn't? Then what? Oh, I was like, so let's maybe write different things. I think I'd probably let them slide. I was like, go ahead. And hopefully the high school student will just be like, seriously, right? But
another good SEL moment there to be able to kind of talk about, like, not everybody is going to be comfortable with that question. And so let's think about what we're asking, that we want to be friendly and communicate, but we also want to respect other people like we want them to respect us.
I knew that my students were excited because like I said, I could hear a pin drop. They were very excited. I wasn't sure how the high schoolers were reacting. And then I got the emails from the high school librarians. My students love this. They were so excited to get these letters. I will say I spent very little money. Like, I mean, just if you want, this could be like a big project and you could buy stationery and stickers. I just photocopied things and I went on Teachers Pay Teachers and I got like letter writing templates free. I shared all the links, by the way. So don't think you have to go find them. I shared them. And I would just print them out. I would just print them out like 5-6 copies. I would find different ones for different themes. We did like summer ones at the end. I did buy one roll of thank you stickers just because at the end, our culminating event to our pen pal was thank you for being my pen pal. Thank you for writing to me. I also knew we sent them kind of late towards the end of the year. I get my students till the bitter end. The very last day of school, they're still coming for specials.
Nice.
But I know that the high school librarians, they start to not see some of their students towards the end, especially if they're seniors. I know the seniors start to, you know, kind of disappear. Or I know with testing, only certain kids come to school on certain days. And so I should have probably timed that a little bit better. But that was the one kind of funding that I did. I bought one roll of thank you stickers from Amazon. I think they cost me $5 and we used those thank you stickers. But otherwise, I just used things we had. I used Xerox. I used colored paper I already had. There wasn't any kind of monetary investment I needed to make in this, which was lovely.
Well, and you were talking about like maybe color coding or, you know, somehow identifying which letters are going to which school, which are coming from which school. And I could totally see just going on like Canva or Docs or something and making your own little template that has like a snowflake if it's going to this place or a whatever, so that it's a quick visual sort when they come in.
And I could easily do it, that my students do it too. I thought about for next year, I might just buy like those little stamps, you know, where they have like a smiley or whatever. And I'll say, hey, if you are, you know, John Smith High School, go stamp a star on top. And I feel very strongly about letting my students do as much as they can by themselves, especially in third grade, because that's when they're able to. They're able to kind of do it. For second grade, I think I might have to stamp it for them.
Sure.
But for third graders, I think, yeah, I would, or, a sticker or whatever it is, colored paper. Colored paper is more expensive. I think a stamp would be much cheaper to do, and you could reuse it. But yeah, so I think
lots of options.
Yes. So the other thing that came from all this letter writing, which was just purely coincidental, but it really worked out. We had an author visit. So we had Jeff Goddesfeld, he doesn't have an I in his name, who wrote the book Honor Flight. And I think someone talked about Honor Flight on one of your book breaks.
They did.
So he came, I think either the day of or the day after the book released. So we, and I might have mentioned it, but if not, I'll just talk about it now. Our school has a Purple Star designation. This is a Virginia designation that we are a military connected school. So we do a lot for military families. We have a lot of military families. So we have a section of our school is very transient because we're near like Fort Belvoir, we're near Andrews, we're near Pentagon. We have a lot of families at Department of Defense. We have a lot of families that move in and move out. Some of them come back. It's great. But so this book, we had a bookstore that we kind of partner with, and she sent a list. I was like, I really want this book because I think it would really connect with our military youth and even not our military youth. I really wanted that book. And so she said, sure. And he came and he gave his author talk and he talked about the Honor Flight and the Honor Flight Network, which I'll give a very brief synopsis. The Honor Flight Network sponsors veterans mostly from the Korean and Vietnam War to come to Washington, D.C. to see monuments and things like that. But they also provide the homecoming that many of these military personnel never got. So it's here in D.C. You can go greet honor flights at National Airport or Dulles Airport. You can volunteer and meet them at the gate. You can meet them outside. But another big campaign they have is mail call. And one of the things they do for these veterans that are on these flights is they have mail call and they distribute letters, analog letters like we wrote, from people they know, but also people they don't know, like students. So this was like a perfect tie-in for us with the letter writing. So our military kids club, before the author visit, they had come up with questions for Jeff, and we had come up with some too. And, they were able to ask those questions. The very interesting thing about Jeff Goddesfeld is he's not military connected. He's not a veteran. It's not that his family served or anything like that. He just feels very strongly about this. He served as an honor flight companion, which is another way to volunteer. Every honor flight veteran gets someone who is their companion from their home airport the whole trip and comes back with them that kind of takes care of them. And so you can volunteer to do that, but you have to pay for your own flight and everything. So, there's money involved to do that. But I think I might want to do that someday, but I don't know how it would work. I'm in DC, right? So I'm right by DC, but it would be interesting. So my military kids club, we call them the Military Kids Club. Their sponsors said, hey, we're thinking of doing mail call. We're going to send letters from our military connected youth. And I was like, okay, so you guys send it from military. Why don't I send letters from non-military connected youth? Because we still do a lot of things as a school to support our military connected youth.
Sure.
And so it was so easy for me to come to my third graders and my second graders and be like, we're writing letters to the veterans. And they had gone to the author visit or if they didn't get to go to the author visit, because we had a snow day. So we had some classes that didn't get to go. I would read them the book and we would talk about mail call and the Honor Flight Network. So I did that with third and second grade. They wrote letters. Fourth grade, we just wrote letters. I gave them some sentence starters. It was very easy for fourth grade. I did it with all my students K through 4. So for my kindergartners, I just gave them like coloring pages, veterans coloring pages. And I said, hey, color it in and write your name. Like that's enough. My first graders, I said, hey, you can write thank you. You can do that much. So we'll color, write thank you. So it was great. And I sent almost 400 letters in to the Honor Flight Network.
Wow.
And our military kids club, I think, sent about 55, maybe 75. I don't remember how many they sent, a lot. And so that was like kind of really nice way to take this project and add a service learning component outside of our school, because you're never going to meet this veteran, right? In a way, they're kind of a pen pal, but they might not write back. And it was a wonderful way to kind of connect this pen pal writing of connection to something beyond us and beyond our school.
Yeah.
It really like just was kismet and it worked out. But I think next year we'll do mail call again. I think it's
That's
a wonderful
amazing.
way. Yeah.
And I feel like you've got opportunities there too with like potentially if you weren't writing for this particular program, I mean, you could find schools that are reading a companion book to one you're reading, or,
Absolutely.
There's so many ways you could sort of
and then
make those connections.
I also thought about there's a lot of kind of elderly care homes that probably would love to hear from students.
Absolutely.
So I thought that may be another way to outreach. I mean, letter writing can have such an outreach in general for service learning if you don't want to do honor flight. For my school, honor flight worked out because it was there. But so I thought to myself, we could do that. We could write to like an elder care home or send cards or whatever it is. But because they now have the foundation in letter writing, I know they can write a letter.
Right.
So that was nice. The other thing I didn't mention, I kept all the letters they received. I kept them all together.
Okay.
I did not let them take them home in between.
Okay.
And at the end, I wrote a culminating letter home to families. Dear family, we have done this, attached, you will find pen pal letters from these high school students. I read them all. I promise you, but these are the letters I received. I stapled them together and I sent them home. And I also said, if you have any concerns, email me. I didn't get one email. So, I mean, it was fine. But I think parents also seeing, and for students to see all of them together, what a nice way. Like you see them all together. This was the postcard I started with. This is what we ended with.
Yeah.
And it kind of got that communication home too, that this is what we did.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if I mentioned in the beginning, I did run this by my principal. I ran this by administration because if a phone call came, they're like, why is my kid writing to high school kids?
Yeah.
I didn't want her to be caught off guard. So
absolutely.
I would recommend that maybe to an elementary teacher or an elementary librarian.
That totally makes sense.
Hey, just let your admin know and look up the security, kind of the safety privacy, student privacy for your district.
Yeah.
Make sure you're not, but most of I would say my kids were so excited. They're like, are we going to have the same pen pals next year? And I was like, I don't know about that because advisories change. Our classes change. Some of you are moving. So, but I felt like this became something that I just was like on a whim. Hey, let's do something very analog. And it became something much more meaningful. And it really, like I said, it cultivated connection even with each other. Right? Comparing pen pals.
Yeah. And talk about what am I going to write? What are you going to write?
Right.
Oh, I mentioned this. You mentioned that. Like just getting those different thoughts going together. Yeah.
And I thought about if I worked in a much smaller school district, right? Because I grew up in a school district where there was only one high school. So if you were going to just do it with one high school, you could just do it with one high school. If there are some schools I know are K-12, pre-K-12. It'd be kind of fun to do it with like the lower campus and the upper campus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Depending on the school. Now you would maybe get brothers and sisters or cousins or things like that. But
you might. But you could also kind of figure out sort of semi-randomize so that not every kid's going to match up with family member.
Little kids love a big kid. They love it. They emulate them. They love a big kid. And I guess I forgot that big kids also still love to help little kids.
Yeah.
Right? They still love that. So that's why this project worked. I think that's really where it comes from is humans in general. We love to help.
Yeah.
And we love to emulate. So
absolutely.
I think that's part of it that's where it came from.
Well, and it's funny because you're talking about doing this with third and fourth graders and or second and third graders. And I'm thinking like, I would absolutely do this with my middle school students and they need those exact same skills. Like they also don't have a knowledge of what the structure of a letter is. They also don't have a lot of handwriting skill. So like doing those kinds of things, doing those communications would absolutely be relevant to their educational process, but also a really good opportunity for them, you know? So
I also feel like I don't think it's librarians because I think we know better, but I have heard so many like English teachers telling students to write to authors. And then authors become inundated with like all these letters. I think this is a much better way to cultivate letter writing than writing to a poor author who's like probably poor Mo Willems has like 50,000 letters on his doorstep every day.
Yeah.
I think this would be a better way. Not that they can't talk about books. I mean, this is still very literacy. Like my students, I remember some of them, they got letters back. The other thing is you get to be so nosy. I love being a little nosy. You get to read all the letters. So you get to find out so much about your students that they don't tell you.
I love the idea of sort of getting this peek into our students' minds and universes.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of things they tell their pen pals that they don't tell me, right? Like I found
Yeah.
out
Oh,
that
absolutely.
I found out one of my students had gone like really high in a gymnastics competition and I had
Huh.
no idea. And I was like, "Oh, wow, it's so interesting." And then they find out that you read their letters, but that's okay. It's
But like, it's
okay.
a great opportunity too, like you said, to have those connections. And I mean, I think it's absolutely valid to tell them up front, like, look, I'm just going to look through these just to make sure that you're being
Mhm.
safe and that, I
Yeah.
want you to have the best possible experience with this. So,
And I also
it's
tell
not
them
like you're
I
doing something
read,
wrong there.
yeah, and I also tell them I read through it to check their grammar, right? Because some of them I'm
Sure.
like, "Hey, friends, this doesn't make sense. How
Yeah.
can we fix this?" Or, they'll hand. I did also, I will say, I have a couple of like lazy bone students that would rather just check out and just read the whole time in the library. And so I had to like kind of
Okay.
pull them out of like another special or class or talk to the teacher and be like, "Hey, Johnny didn't finish his letter. Can I have him for 10 minutes to finish the letter?" And I'll be like, "Okay, come on, finish the letter." And a good way to do that is you
I
just
mean,
guilt
when
a
they're reading
child.
instead of working is not the
I
worst thing.
know, right? It's not the worst thing ever, but I'm also like, I have 50 letters contingent that we have complete letters. Um, but
Absolutely.
yes. And then I learned my lesson that the next time I gave that student the second grade template with all the sentence structures. So I was like, well, can you at least just
Gotcha.
fill this in? Can you just fill this
Right.
in? That'll take less time. But
Everybody
yeah.
wins.
Yes, everyone wins. I did, as you said earlier, I did share a folder on Google Drive. It's open to everybody. I shared everything I have. So including, I made a checklist for anyone who might want to do this and plan it out. So I kind of gave you a rough timeline. I mean, obviously you don't have to copy me. Please don't do it your way. But I gave you the templates. I gave you all the resources, the Canva templates, all the free links from Teachers Pay Teachers. Now, as of July, they are free. I can't
Right.
guarantee they'll stay free, but
Yep.
there's quite a lot. And if you do decide to do mail call, I also gave you the template, gave everyone the template in Canva to write like Dear Veteran and the
Awesome.
link for the Honor Flight Network mail call, if that's something that
That's
you
great.
think would work for your school.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
folks, I mean, guests are often generous and share a thing. Kannan has shared an entire folder. I mean, it's awesome. So definitely make sure you're digging into that a bit. Um, I mean, this is awesome. I love this lesson. I love the skills it's bringing in. I love the way it's connecting the students with each other, with their skills, with you. And it's just giving them maybe a little bit of a different perspective on the world too. Like it kind of hurts my heart a little bit that they have grown up in a world where they don't get mail, like where even now, like I don't get mail hardly, like maybe once a year you get a card, right? You get your birthday card and that's
Yeah.
about it. So like
Mm-hmm.
having that opportunity to correspond with somebody is definitely something a little bit of a lost treasure that these kids are going to get
And
back.
it's also a safe environment for them to reach out to a stranger because we warn them so much about the internet and being a kid on the
Mm-hmm.
internet, right? Like, don't
Mm-hmm.
talk to strangers. You don't know if they're a kid or not. No, in
Yeah.
this, we have people vetting. We have professionals vetting. This is a
Right.
high school student writing to an elementary student.
Mm-hmm.
And because they're not going to meet, I don't feel like there's a lot of danger. If I think I've thought about for next year, if we decide to meet, I think I would do it like over Zoom or something like that. Just because the
Mm-hmm.
logistics is just for a whole third grade level to meet all their pen pals from different schools. I just think would
Yeah.
be a little bit of a logistical nightmare. Um,
Be like
and
field day.
yeah, and at the end of the year, I reached back out to all those high school librarians. I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this again next year. Would you be interested?" So it's also a nice way to cultivate connection with our colleagues. Librarians are collaborators. That's what we are. So
Oh yeah.
when do we get to collaborate, especially across like I guess levels, like elementary and secondary, elementary and high school?
Yeah.
I never really get to work with a high school librarian. So it
Yeah.
was really fun to be able to do that with this project.
And it's fun too that it's not necessarily about books. Like so much of what we do is about books,
No.
especially when we're dealing interschool, like, oh, do you have this book? Can I borrow this book? Do you
Mm-hmm.
want me to send you this book? And this is a different take and kind of reinforcing that teacher element of what we do, which is a
Mm-hmm.
very important element of what we do.
Yeah.
So love it. Love it, love it, love it.
I also forgot to mention at the very, very beginning, I did read them a picture book that's written in letter format. So I wrote them, I wrote them. I did not write them. I read them. I read them the book, Can I Be Your Dog? Which is about a dog looking for someone to adopt him. And he writes to all these people in the community. But I also included that list in my resources. So if you are looking, hey, how can I do this with my students? I would say even like if you wanted to start small, if a teacher was like, I want to do this at the librarian, you could even have like your third graders write to sixth graders or things like that. I don't think
Absolutely.
it's as much because they'll meet each other like, oh, that's my patrol or anything like that. But it can be done much smaller than I did it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and like we were saying, I think this works at so many different grade levels. Like you had your youngs writing to your column olds, but you could also get the middle students involved in this with very easily. And again, I think it's a good skill for the high school students to have too, because I wouldn't be surprised if very few of them have strong structural letter writing skills. So like everybody's winning in this. It's a great learning opportunity. Man, so much fun. I love it. I think now we're going to take our 90-degree turn and go into our book break.
Book break. Sweetie.
I love these titles that you were bringing us here. So, go ahead, dive in, whatever you want to share here.
Sure.
You've got two that you threw out there and maybe a third one. We'll see. Yeah, so it's totally up to
you. So the first one I mentioned was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. If you know Leigh Bardugo, she's written the Six of Crows series and I forgot the other one. It's the sister series, The Serpent.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, sorry. Everyone who reads it is
Six Crows in Shadow and Bone.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you. It's been a minute. It's been a minute since I've read those. But so this one is an adult book. The other ones I think swing more YA, but this is definitely an adult book. It is dark. It is a dark book. I am not someone who reads the horror genre. I'm not a Stephen King girl. I'm just not. But this book hooked me. And so the main character, Alex, she is just fallible. I mean, she's imperfectly kind of an imperfect person that you are rooting for. So it takes place at Yale, which is interesting, right? And it's like kind of these underground societies and people with magical powers. And the thing about Alex is she can see ghosts and the dead. So, a little bit of that. It is strictly adult. I'm going to put that out there. I'm also going to put down a little warning. There is a little bit of some sexual abuse content in it. It's very minor. It's very small, but I will put that trigger warning out there for anyone that may be triggered by that. But otherwise, it hooked me. It has a sequel called Hellbent. And then I think she's coming out with a third one this fall. For someone who does not like horror, I really was into it. And I get scared with trailers for horror movies. So the fact that I did this one even surprises me. But yeah, I really liked it. I love a secret society. I love the setting of a school, a college. So yeah, that's Ninth House. And the other book I recommended.
It's funny. I thought it was a different. There's another book that's Harrow the Ninth, which I thought it was, but that's not Harrow the Ninth. So this is different and sounds really interesting. So that's going on my list.
And there's mystery. It's not just horror. There's mystery, there's magic. The main character is just so multi-layered, and I think that's what I really like about it. There's also the age-old power and privilege struggle, and it does address trauma, right? So it's very nice to read a book that says, hey, life's not perfect, the world's not perfect, and this is what we're dealing with. So it's nice. It's different. It's very different than Six of Crows and Shadow and Bone. So I enjoyed it. Like I said, it's dark though. So people I recommended to you, they were like, what? This is very dark. I was like, it is dark. I will warn you, it's dark, but it's good. The other book I recommended, it's a different book. It's not even that genre. The book is called How to Murder Your Employer, the McMaster's Guide. I think it's the McMaster's Guide to Homicide. I think it's something like that.
That sounds like it lands right in the same genre, but
it's not. So this one, it's kind of don't let the title fool you, because it's all fictional fun, and it's more about satire than murder. So it's another kind of secret college of people who've tried to murder people and failed. So, it's teaching and so I listened to this on audio. The narrator for this is Neil Patrick Harris. So that might've been what sucked me in, but it's kind of a how-to school about like for aspiring murderers. And it's more about like, it's like elaborate schemes and like quirky characters. There's no graphic violence. Like really, there's really no graphic violence. The writing is really sharp. This author, it's by Rupert Holmes. It's a very sharp, like the writing style is very sharp. It's witty. There's like unexpected twists. There's also like a healthy dose of absurdity because it's definitely fiction. Like you're reading this, like this is definitely fictional. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And I wish there was a sequel because I couldn't get enough of this book and the characters. It's very like
sounds
tongue
great, man.
Yeah, and the title is very tongue in cheek, right? Like How to Murder Your Employer. No one is murdering employers in real life, we hope. But in a fictional book,
man,
right?
Well, that's going on my list.
I know that one. That's a definite fun one. And the other one I thought about putting in for book break, and we talked about it earlier. I have been sucked into the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I've been totally sucked in. I have read 7 out of the 8 books. This genre, for anyone who doesn't know, who hasn't heard about it, because it's everywhere now. It's called Lit RPG, which is lit role-playing game. I am not a role-playing game person, but it hooked me. And I recommend the audio. The audiobook narrator does all the voices, and they're all different. And there's so many characters. There's so many characters. So for anyone who doesn't know the basic premise of this book, it is a man named Carl, who is taking care of his ex-girlfriend's cat. One night, there's just like what seems like the apocalypse, and the only way to survive is you have to go underground. And I think like the catch line is the apocalypse will be televised. And so they go underground, and everyone who survives is now part of this like reality show game, like Survivor, but with real stakes, like people really die, with aliens, run by aliens. Yeah. And during the first book, like the cat, he also takes the cat underground. So if anyone's
kind
a cat
of accidentally.
Accidentally. And the cat's name is Princess Donut. So that's kind of fun. This is an adult book. Like this is definitely an adult book. It's crass. It's funny. It is very funny. But yeah, and it goes through this guy, Carl, and his cat, Princess Donut, his ex-girlfriend's cat, trying to figure out this world of aliens in this reality show apocalypse where he's trying to survive. And it's really like, it will get stuck in your head. You will be like, what happened to Carl? To a point where I got to book 5 and I was like, I need to slow down or this is going to end for me before he can write another book. But yeah, this is like taken off in the world. So I haven't heard anyone talk about it with librarians, but for non-librarians who are on Book Talk and Bookstagram, everyone's talking about Dungeon Crawler Carl, and it's a fluff read. I'll be very honest. There is some deep philosophical stuff in there, but it's hilariously funny. You're going to find yourself laughing really hard. And there's some good one-liners.
Tons of one-liners, tons of violent, lots of violence, lots of gore.
Yes.
It's almost like a horror comedy in a way. But it's, you never know what's coming next.
Right.
I just finished the 8th book that just came out.
Oh, did you? I didn't know you were reading it, Steve.
You know, it's funny.
I couldn't like you more. I do now.
I will say, I picked up the first book like ages ago, like before he got big. It was coming up on Reddit a lot as like, oh, you got to check this book out. And it was like $1 or something like that. So I was like, great, I'll buy it. And I read it and I was kind of like, nah, it's not bad. Maybe I'll read another one. And I'm just so interested in how he's going to wrap it all up because he's built this, like he keeps building this world out as he goes along.
I will say he's super prolific in world building. I think that is one thing this author is a master of, is world building. And I love a good world building. Like when I read a fantasy novel, I always love the first one the most of a series because that's where the world building happens. And just when I think this can't go on anymore, it keeps going.
Yeah. Well, in the, not to give anything away, but in the 8th book, we're kind of getting to a point where all of the, I want to say the world, it's the universe has sort of been built out. And so now we're kind of getting down to the end game. And I think there's supposed to be maybe 2 more books. So I'm curious to see where it's all going to go. But
we'll
you said, it's been just wildfire through book circles, and they're actually turning it into a live action TV show.
I don't want it to be a live action TV show.
I don't know how they're going to do Princess Donut.
there's some books that I feel like get ruined when they become a movie or anything. But nowadays, I think all movies are from books. But yeah, if you were thinking of Dungeon Crawler Carl, I would recommend the audio if you're someone who loves the audio and can do audio. And even if you think this is not a genre for me, like just try it because you will get sucked in. You
Give
will
it a
get
shot.
sucked in. Yeah.
You never know. And,
and
you know,
if not,
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. Well, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of our high school students were into it, and, you know, probably they shouldn't be, but they probably are reading it. So like,
well, one of my 5th graders knew it. I was talking to another teacher and I was like, have you heard of Dungeon Crawler? He's like, I know Dungeon Crawler Carl. I was like, no. Why do you know this? No. So that's an interesting way to find out about books. But yeah, so I am in the Dungeon Crawler Carl, but the other 2 are very good. So, you know, Ninth House, How to Murder Your Employer. How to Murder Your Employer, not nearly as dark, not violent. Really not really very violent. So, yeah.
Going near the top of my list, definitely.
Yeah, it was a good one.
This is awesome. You have brought us awesome lesson, awesome books. I love it so much. Folks should be following you, but if they are not, where should they go looking for you?
My 2 predominant places to find me is Instagram. I'm at KangroLib, and Bluesky at KangroLib. Bluesky, now it's the summer. I won't be in too much, but I do try to. During the school year, it's a good place to find me. And if you are on Bluesky, Steve is always on Bluesky. You can always strike up a conversation with Steve.
That is where I hang. Well, thank you once again for coming by. And we're absolutely going to do this again some point. So think about what else you want to share with us. But this has been so great. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. See you soon.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the SLLN podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes for the episode. They feature links to resources shared by our guest, as well as ways to keep in touch with them, and links to the book break titles. I'd love to hear from you. If you have feedback, a comment, an idea, a question, or something you want to share, you can email drtlovesbooks@gmail.com. That's drtlovesbooks@gmail.com. Know a librarian with something we could learn from? Let us know. Until next time, be good, be safe, and be well.